Hey Titus, I have a question. Will you trust AI with your life savings?
Maybe not.
But nowadays everyone uses AI, right?
Yeah, for work, relationship advice. But why do you ask anyway?
Because today we are trying to find out whether AI can give decent investing advice. Okay, before we test them on a real stock, let's get to know our contestants better through a few warm-up questions.
So, this is how it's gonna work. We'll be asking ChatGPT and Doubao the exact same questions. Then, we'll compare their answers to see who gives the best investing advice.
And the first question would be, would you trust yourself with your entire life savings?
Let's take a look.
Okay, I think ChatGPT gave us quite a standard investing answer.
I think so too. But actually, I'm more intrigued by Doubao's answer. Like, what on earth does letting a goldfish drive your sports car even mean?
Well, since it's a Chinese AI, right? I would assume maybe it meant Jing Long Yu instead.
Ah, but somehow both AIs are basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is don't blindly trust AI with your entire life savings.
Alright, let's move on to something a little bit more challenging. Let's ask if AI thinks they are better investors than the average human being. Let's first take a look at ChatGPT's answer. Reading earnings report at lightning speed. The only time I'm operating at lightning speed is when the lecturer says, "That's all for today."
Oh my god, same. But I do agree with one thing though. Investing isn't just about processing information. I believe that judgment, experiences, and sometimes even instincts still matter.
Right.
And I think we can take a look at Topao's response as well.
Zero real life bills, rent or retirement goals. Bro has no life, but somehow that is the best life.
Agree. Well, so far, both AIs have been giving us generic investing advice. But anyone can sound smart when the questions are easy, right?
I agree. So let's see how they perform when analyzing a real stock. And we need a stock that's actually interesting enough to come and analyze. So probably not the popular ones like Tesla, Nvidia, or Apple. These are stocks that have been analyzed multiple times by AIs already.
Exactly. So we picked a stock that many people have probably never heard of, which is China Aviation Oil.
And to make things interesting, we will be scoring them on a scale of 1 to 5 based on three things: accuracy, clarity, and persuasiveness.
Sure. Well, right now, let's begin. The first prompt that we gave both AIs are explain CAO to someone who has never heard of it before in 30 seconds.
I actually prefer the way that ChatGPT explains it by comparing CAO to airlines, which most people already know. But I'm a bit skeptical about CAO does not have to worry about expensive planes or failing seats.
Well, maybe not directly like airlines, but I believe that there's definitely some form of relationship.
Exactly, so if airlines struggle with profitability, ticket prices rise, or air travel demand falls, fuel consumption could also be affected. So CAO isn't completely insulated from what's happening in the aviation industry. So, what's on your take on Topao's response?
Well, I believe that it's concise and straight to the point. And but just that I felt it relied more on describing what CAO does rather than a ChatGPT, which uses more analogies to help beginners visualize the business. And if I were completely new to investing, I'll probably find ChatGPT's explanation easier to remember. So who do you think wins this round?
I think ChatGPT wins this round. The next question is, what's the biggest concern an investor should have about CAO?
Well, I believe this round is more interesting because both AIs focus on completely different concerns.
Yeah, ChatGPT said, is CAO really as diversified as it looks? And showed us how cyclical this entire company is. And even though CAO has different business segments and investments, a large part of its earnings is still tied to the aviation industry.
Yep, agree. And meanwhile, Topao went all the way back to 2004. And honestly, it's quite a shocking story. CAO lost around 550 million USD through speculative oil derivatives trading and nearly went bankrupt.
Wow. And the CAO was eventually jailed as well. To be fair, there have been major governance and risk management reforms since then. So the real question is whether the investors should still care about something that happened more than 20 years ago.
Well, personally, I think ChatGPT highlighted a concern that's more relevant for investors like me, while Topao took a completely different approach and brought up one of the biggest scandals in CAO's history.
Both are valid concerns, to be fair, just from different perspectives. And so we're just calling this round a tie.
Tie. Alright, enough worrying about what could go wrong.
Let's hear the bull case.
We asked both AIs what could drive CAO's next phase of growth. Let's take a look at the responses.
ChatGPT highlighted three things: aviation growth, sustainable aviation fuel, And what stood out to me is that CAO has a huge cash pile. For a company of its size, having a cash reserve of around 687 million US dollars in cash and virtually no debt just gives it a lot of financial flexibility.
Well, agreed. And on the other hand, I was a bit skeptical reading the next growth phase was basically guaranteed. I mean, in Doubao's responses, these are probably two words that no investors should ever trust.
Exactly. I'm low-key starting to wonder whether Doubao is collecting commission from CAO.
Or maybe it's just biased because it's a China-made AI, right? However, I do like that it looked at both the demand and supply side. So even though the guaranteed growth part was overstated, I still preferred it due to the wider perspective it offers.
I will choose the opposite though. I thought ChatGPT was more balanced and realistic, even if it gave fewer growth drivers.
Okay. Alright, final round. The question every investor cares about. Would you invest in China Aviation Oil?
And more importantly, what score would you give it out of 10?
Let's take a look at the responses. Well, I believe what's interesting is that both AIs ended up being fairly positive on CAO.
Yeah, ChatGPT gave it a rating out of 8 out of 10 and a buy rating. I also would like one of its lines. Don't marry the stock, date it.
Okay, they also pointed out that analysts are generally bullish on CAO with target prices around $2.48 to $2.53.
Meanwhile, Doubao gave it a slightly lower score of 7 out of 10. What I found interesting was that it linked it back to the 2004 scandal and argued that markets still may put a discount valuation on companies with controversial history.
Which is a fair point. Sometimes perceptions matter just as much as the fundamentals.
But if I had to pick a winner, I'd give a slight edge to ChatGPT because it backed up its answers with recommendations and analyst target prices rather than just making broad claims.
Well, me too. Well, and finally, the winner is ChatGPT.
But honestly, the real winner today might be CAO. One AI saw a cash-rich company well positioned for aviation growth.
Yeah, and the other saw a company still carrying the shadow of its greatest mistake. And despite taking completely different approaches, both AIs arrived at a positive view on the company.
So here's the real question. Would you invest in CAO? Let
Let
us know in the comments.